Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What's going on, guys? It is TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL edition, week 18. We are finally here. It is the last week of the season before the playoffs get started. Obviously, a little bummed out that we're at this point. Excited about football hitting the playoffs, but that also means that we only have about 6 weeks left in the season, so to speak, before we're moving into the off season here. So looking to finish the season off strong here before we enter the playoffs. With me, as always, is fine citizen, Mr. Jacob Workman. Jake, how's it going?
What's going on?
Not too much, man. Not too much. Let's jump right into last week pick results. We both performed pretty well. Jake ended up at 9-6-1. I ended up at 10-5-1. So we both had that push, which I don't remember even what the game was off the top of my head. Locks. Jake had the Rams. That was a miss. I locked in on Cleveland, and I did hit that. So we're both still moving strong as far as locks go, moving into the last week of the season. Our current records, we're definitely bringing it down to the wire to keep it over 500. Right now, Jake, you're 122, 129, and 5. I am 126, 125, and not in 5. So I'm one game above 500. You are 7 games behind. You're going to need a big week here as we move into things, but we're both performing relatively well considering when we pick these games and all of the chaos that we've seen this year with half the quarterbacks in the league being out and a slew of other things going on. So, jumping right into some of the stuff from last week here, we're going to focus really heavily on the playoff scenarios, and we're actually going to play a little game here where I'm going to have Workman pick his spread picks, but if he does pick in underdog, I'm going to ask you to tell me whether or not you think that team is going to win outright, and then based on what your selections are, we'll take a look at what the potential playoff scenarios would be based on your picks from week 18. Before we jump into that, we touch base here quickly on week 17. We had a lot of crazy things happen. Tepper throwing a drink at a fan, which was pretty funny. Philadelphia lost at home to Arizona, which was insane. And then unfortunately we had the fiasco that was the Dallas Cowboys Detroit Lions game, which I very quickly received 12 angry text messages all in sequential order from Mr. Workman, and did what I know to do, which is just not respond. So it was a rough game, really for both of us, but more so obviously for the Lions, who definitely got screwed there at the end of the game. What were your thoughts on what we saw during week 17?
So just to go off of that, so in 2014, the Lions played the Cowboys in the playoffs in Dallas. Stafford was leading a drive down the field. We were in the lead. There was like 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I threw a pass to Brandon Pettigrew, blatant pass interference. 3 flags were thrown, called pass interference over the PA, and then all of a sudden they picked it up. Lions went on to lose that game. Obviously, they won a playoff game. I quit watching the NFL that year. I did not watch the rest of the playoffs. The next week, apparently there was something with Dez Bryant and a catch. I still haven't seen it because I still don't care. And I'm glad that they lost that game because they shouldn't have been in that game to begin with. That was the first Super Bowl in my life I didn't watch. I literally did not watch the rest of the playoffs that year, and I really debated ever watching the NFL again. That was so egregious of a call that I don't know. The Lions just get screwed more than any team I've ever seen in my life. If this would have happened in the playoffs, what happened, I literally would never watch the NFL again. That was so god awful. Every video has shown blatantly what happened, and and the NFL is making it worse by not accepting it, and they're still trying to say that. And NFL Films gets a lot of goddamn audio. It's very simple. Release the audio. That's all we need. Let's hear. There's got to be on field. I guarantee someone on the Lions was mic'd. Brad Allen obviously is mic'd, but someone's got to have an audio of what was said here. And if we can hear Taylor Decker, the video that was just released was Taylor Decker right in front of him, rubbing his stomach, giving the sign of eligible while he's looking right at him. So I don't know why they can come out with this video and still say that Skipper is the one reporting eligible when it's plain as day he's not. He's 30 yards away. But It's a typical Lions result is what it is. Hopefully that we don't see this same shit in the playoffs. I do know that they've said Brad Allen and his crew supposedly are not supposed to be doing a playoff game. I never have seen that officially. I did see Adam Schefter say that. And I did see they're actually the crew doing the Saturday night game again on ESPN this week. So be prepared for more nonsense from them. All I have to say is the draft is in Detroit this year. Goodell, be prepared what happens when you take that stage, because it's going to be an absolute fucking firestorm on his ass. This is a disgrace, and they've got to get the referee situation figured out. It's clear as day they need full-time refs in this league with some accountability. This should not be their secondary job. This should be their real job. This is a $1 billion league. I think we can get something figured out with the officiating to where it's more, I don't even know what, I guess consistent or makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of things that are just awful with refereeing in this league. So it made matters worse when Philly lost too, because we would definitely have been the 2 seed. Now, more than likely, if we can win our first playoff game, we're going to be on the road, which we wouldn't have been. So it actually is a huge situation that happened in this game. But we'll move on and see what happens. But I 100% can promise you, if that would have happened in a playoff game, I would never watch the NFL again in my life.
Yeah. It was interesting. I don't want to win games like that because there is controversy around it. As a Cowboys fan, I don't want to also be blind to the fact that we talked about this before the show. There are a couple things that I also think had an impact on the game that didn't go Dallas's way. I've been talking about it a lot with Micah Parsons not getting holding calls, things like that. The Peyton Hendershot thing where he got called for tripping when it wasn't him, it was Aiden Hudson. All of those things could eventually impact the game, but obviously this is going to have the spotlight on it because by all accounts, Detroit scored that touchdown and it took them a full 30 seconds before anybody did anything about it. Brad Allen's crew this is not the first time that they've been caught in controversy this year alone. In week 13, when the Chiefs were playing the Packers, there was a play where Mahomes was running out of bounds. He did not give himself up. He was running to the sidelines, and I don't know who the player was on Green Bay, but the dude in Green Bay hit him with the shoulder and got called for unsportsmanlike conduct or something like that, when it clearly wasn't. He made contact without his helmet, and he made contact while Pat Mahomes was, if not inbounds, was just out of bounds. So very well within his reason to hit the quarterback in doing what he did. And then not only a couple plays later, and this was with 40-something seconds left in the fourth quarter, there was a very blatant pass interference call against the Packers with the...
It was MVS.
MVS, yeah. MVS was like on the 5-yard line, and they didn't throw a flag. And he very, very clearly got pass interference. So not the first time that this has happened with them, and it's had a negative impact on the game. I have not read anything that's like an official notice from the NFL that says that they are not going to be in the postseason, but I have read multiple things that are saying that they've been downgraded, so to speak. So.
Yeah, I don't think the NFL officially releases that stuff, but all of the insiders have basically said it.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. It's definitely so. I mean, we've spent multiple podcast episodes this year complaining about the referees, and we're not being picky. We're not being Homer fans. We're not specifically talking about Cowboys or Lions or Rams games. Like, it is a big problem league wide, and it seems like there's relatively easy ways to fix this, or at least improve it. Making them full-time is one of them. There's no reason why there isn't somebody that is up in the skybox that has the ability to quickly overrule. It drives me absolutely insane that some of these referees take 6 minutes for them to watch a replay when I can watch it once in 10 seconds and I know what the call was. Consistency of calls also needs to be fixed. We just talked about some of the holding calls. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to how that stuff happens, but it definitely seems like they are specific on who they do or don't call some of these plays up against. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's similar to some of the stuff that we talk about with college side of the game. Like, there are things that are negatively impacting the product, and the referees are there to enforce rules. They're not there to decide games. And it seems like there's been a lot of situations this year where games have been decided based on referees, whether or not there's skin in the game for them or if they're just legitimately not prepared for the job, I don't know. Getting these guys full time would be a step in the right direction, but what other job can you have where you do your job poorly and there's no repercussions? Yeah. Like I just crazy. I don't get it.
And $1 billion business with millions of people watching.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing. Like these guys are trying to expand into Mexico and London and all these. Like, why don't we fix the product here before we start doing shit like that? Like, you don't have a problem flying teams because if we do put a team in London, the travel cost for that alone, like, I don't know. We can go down a rabbit hole complaining about some of this stuff, but hate to see it. Even as a Cowboys fan, like that's not how I want to see a game played. That was a great game by all accounts up until that point. I mean, we were going back and forth. Watching Dan Campbell going for fourth down after fourth down after fourth down.
He does.
Even as a Cowboys fan, man, I love to see it, man. He's a beast, and I'm looking forward to hoping them making some noise in the playoffs, at least until they play Dallas.
The fake punt was awesome too. They ran that beautiful fake punt.
Yeah, I texted. I'm pretty sure I texted Taxis, and I was like, "This doesn't feel right." And then, shortly after, we get the fake punt.
Tepper was fined $300,000 for that. Also,
Tepper fined $300K. That's a drop in the bucket for him.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He'll probably try to sue someone or file bankruptcy for someone to get that money back.
Yeah.
Also, we were talking about officiating some of the things earlier in the year. One funny thing that happened. So the Steelers, if you remember back when the Steelers played the Rams, I bitched quite a bit about how there was a terrible spot at the end of the game that cost the Rams a chance to win the game. Well, the Steelers beat Seattle this week, which actually clinched the Rams' playoff berth. And the Rams sent a tweet out saying, we forgive that spot of the ball. They said it makes up for it.
Oh God. Yeah. So there you just another example of shitty officiating. Oh boy. Okay. All right. Let's jump into what we're looking at as far as the current AFC and NFC playoff picture. So the one seeds are set. Niners in the NFC, Ravens in the AFC. They have their one seeds locked down, and the road to the Super Bowl runs through San Francisco and Baltimore. The NFC East, AFC South, and NFC South are all still up for grabs. We've got one NFC playoff spot and two AFC playoff spots that are still remaining, and a total of 6 teams that are still in the race that are not currently in. Playoff picture on the AFC side, right now Baltimore has a bye. If everything stays the same, Indy would be traveling to Miami, Buffalo would be traveling to Kansas City, and Cleveland would be traveling to Jacksonville. That would be round 1 of the AFC. Still in the hunt are Houston and Pittsburgh, and we'll jump in a little bit deeper into that stuff here as we cover the games for this week. On the NFC side, as we just discussed, the San Fran is the 1 seed. They have a bye in first round. The 3 first-round games would be Green Bay at Dallas, which is a nightmare for Dallas fans because we've had so many controversial things happen playing the Packers, although Rodgers isn't there anymore. The Rams would be going to Detroit, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but that is kind of poetic. And then we have Philly sitting at the 5 seed that would be going to Tampa. And the way that Philly's been playing, that's not a good draw for them. We got 4 teams still in the hunt on the NFC side, Seattle, New Orleans, Minnesota, and Atlanta. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through each of these games for week 18, talk about the playoff scenarios, and then Jake's going to make his pick against the spread. And if you pick an underdog, tell me if it's a cover or an outright win. And then at the end of this, we're going to review these standings and determine where we think seeding is going to fall for next week.
I got you. Before we start, I did just see some breaking news. Our college episode is clearly over, but we are not going to have another one before the national championship. Washington running back Dylan Johnson is expected to play. The X-rays were negative. So that is a huge deal for Washington.
Yeah, that's good news for sure for Washington. Now get that man to get his foot up and give that man some cortisone and some Vicodin, Toradol, whatever the hell.
Yeah, he needs it all, but that is a huge break for the Huskies.
And good news that they're getting that now on Tuesday, right? Like it's not like they have to wait until Sunday. If they're figuring out on Tuesday that he's going to be okay, the injury wasn't as bad as what they thought it was going to be. So that's good news for the Huskies. All right, guys. Let's jump into Week 18 picks here. The first of our first game of this week kicks off on the East Coast as the 9-7 Pittsburgh Steelers face off against the 13-3 Baltimore Ravens Saturday at 4:30 at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. Baltimore has locked in both the AFC North Division crown as well as the 1 seed throughout the playoffs, meaning the road to the Super Bowl for the AFC goes through Baltimore. The Steelers, meanwhile, are currently on the outside looking in and need one of the following things to happen: a win at Baltimore and a Buffalo loss, a win at Baltimore and a Jacksonville loss or tie, a win at Baltimore and a Texans-Colts tie in the game. Also, they can get in if they tie at Baltimore and Jacksonville loses and the Texans-Colts game doesn't get in the tie, or if Jacksonville loses and Denver wins and the Texans-Colts game doesn't end in a tie, Pittsburgh would also get in. So they have 5 different scenarios where Pittsburgh may end up in the playoffs. Baltimore is likely to rest starters, while the Steelers are obviously going to be all in here, and that makes the Steelers a 3.5-point favorite in this one.
Through the window, around the church, through the light, nothing but net. So for this one, clearly Baltimore's not going to have anyone playing that I can foresee starter wise. Tyler Huntley could still win this game for Baltimore, but I'm going to give Pittsburgh an outside shot here, even though I shouldn't. But I'm going to Pittsburgh win and cover.
All right, Pittsburgh win and cover. I've got Baltimore they got a lot of banged up players right now. Having that extra bye week for the starters is a smart choice for them. For that reason, I think Pittsburgh has the ability to get the W here. I do see this potentially being a closer game. So I'm going to take Baltimore here plus the points, expecting this to potentially be a 3-game win for Pittsburgh. All right, next up we have the 9-7 Houston Texans going up against the 9-7 Indianapolis Colts, 8:15 p.m. Saturday at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Whoever wins this game will be in the playoffs, but there are a couple scenarios that could play out, so let's go over those. Starting with Houston, they will make the playoffs if they win the game against Indy, or if there's a tie against Indy, Jacksonville loses, and Pittsburgh either loses or has a tie. Those 2 scenarios will get Houston in. For Indy, they are in if they beat Houston, or if they tie Houston and Steelers get a loss or tie. So they have 2 different ways to get in. A lot of stake here with these 2 teams. Houston is favored by 1.5 on the road.
I'm going to make some friends of the program pretty happy right here. I'm taking the Colts. Colts win outright and make the playoffs.
Colts win outright and make the playoffs. All right. Yeah, this is a tough one, man, because I think Houston is a more complete team here, and what a story it would be if C.J. Stroud takes Houston to the playoffs as a rookie. I've gone back and forth on this. I'm going to make the friends of the program not too happy, though. I am going to take Houston here to squeak out a road win and make it to the postseason. All right, a preview of our Sunday games here kicks off in the NFC South as the 7-9 Atlanta Falcons visit the 8-8 New Orleans Saints. 1 p.m. Sunday at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. Both of these teams do have a chance at making the playoffs. For Atlanta, if they win against New Orleans and Tampa Bay loses, Atlanta is in. For New Orleans, they have 3 different scenarios: a win against Atlanta and a Tampa Bay loss or tie, a win against Atlanta and both Seattle and Green Bay lose or tie, or a tie against Atlanta and both Seattle and Green Bay lose outright. So should be an interesting matchup here. Both teams have a little bit of a way in to get into the playoffs. New Orleans is favored by 3 at home.
Yeah, I know I have a rule, and but I think I'm going to go against my rule this week. I'm going to take the Saints to win and cover.
All right, Saints win and cover. Yeah, we've teased the Saints a lot with their inconsistency this year. Carr is a big reason for that. Dennis Allen is another, but Atlanta typically plays like garbage on the road, and with this being a loud environment in New Orleans, I'm thinking that gives them an advantage. So I'm going to take the Saints here minus the 3, although I do see this potentially being a push. All right, next we have the 11-5 Cleveland Browns facing off against the 8-8 Cincinnati Bengals, 1 p.m. at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. This game has less on the line as Cincinnati is mathematically eliminated from playoff contention, and Cleveland is in regardless of what happens, as they appear to be locked into the 5 seed on the AFC side. Because of this, Cleveland is likely to rest some starters, making Cincy the favorite by 6.
Yeah, because of that, I mean, I think everyone's still going to be playing for Cincinnati, so I do like Cincinnati get the win and cover. I think Cleveland has no desire in this game whatsoever. It's going to be a rest situation.
Yep, I'm the same way. I'm taking Cincy at home here minus the points with them resting. Browning gives us one more run on offense before handing the reins back to Burrow next year. Next up, we have the 9-7 Jacksonville Jaguars versus the 5-11 Tennessee Titans, 1 p.m. Sunday at Nissan Stadium in Nashville. Obviously, the Titans are mathematically eliminated and have been for a while, but this game still has meaning as Jacksonville is not locked in the AFC South or a playoff berth for that matter. If the Jags are to make the playoffs, they either need a win against Tennessee, a tie at Tennessee, and a Pittsburgh loss or tie, or a Pittsburgh loss, a Denver loss or tie, and the Texan Colts game doesn't end in a tie. So they have three different scenarios where they could find their way in. So some playoff implications in this one. Jacksonville is favored by 5.5 on the road.
So now I will apologize to our friends of the program because I think Jacksonville wins and covers, which essentially means the Colts cannot win the division at that point. But they still will be in the playoffs. So just enjoy it and be happy.
Fair enough. I'm taking Jacksonville here as well. Lawrence should be back. I think a few of the key personalities on this Titans team are probably ready to phone this one in and just get to the offseason.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take the Jags as well. Next, we have the 8-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the 2-14 Carolina Panthers, 1 p.m. at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. Tampa Bay is the team with skin in the game here as Carolina is well out of the playoffs. Tampa Bay is in if they get a win against Carolina or a tie against Carolina and a loss by Seattle and a Green Bay loss or tie. So for Tampa, win and you're in. They are favored by 5.5 on the road.
Yeah, Carolina is straight ass. I'm taking Tampa to win and cover and welcome as the division winner.
Yep. Taking Tampa here. Baker and the boys should right the ship as they head into the playoffs. The big win in Carolina to finish the year and get Tepper to throw some more drinks. Next, we have the 6-10 New York Jets against the 4-12 New England Patriots, 1 p.m. Sunday at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. Nothing but pride on the line here as both of these teams are mathematically eliminated and are happy to be hitting the end of a disappointing season. For the Jets, they are coming off a 17-point loss to Cleveland last Thursday, while the Pats return home after a 6-point loss to Buffalo on New Year's Eve. One important note about this game is that it does sound like this may very well be the last time we see Bill Belichick on the New England sidelines. A coaching tenure unmatched by anyone else in the NFL. Belichick has been with the Patriots for 23 seasons. Coming into this game, he holds the record, a record of 266 and 120 in the regular season with the Pats. Good for a 69% winning percentage. His playoff record stands at 30-12 while in New England, including 9 Super Bowl appearances and 6 Super Bowl victories, which is the most ever. With 302 career wins, Belichick sits third all-time behind only Don Shula and George Halas for the most wins in NFL history, and his 31 career playoff wins is currently also the most ever. Whether this is or isn't the last game Belichick coaches in his career, he is undoubtedly going down as one of, if not the best coach in the history of the league. So just giving a quick note there to Bill Belichick, who we may be seeing coach his last game. It's probably unlikely. His name's already been floated around a couple teams, but wanted to call it out there because he has had 23 seasons in New England. They are favored by 2.5 in this one.
I'm just trying to see my team play a home playoff game. I'm talking about 9 Super Bowls. I actually like New England here. I'm going to take New England minus the 2.5.
I'm going with you. I'm going to go with New England here for Big Bill to get one last W for the Patriots. So we are both going with New England. All right. Next, we have the 7-9 Minnesota Vikings against the 11-5 Detroit Lions, 1 p.m. Sunday at Ford Field in Detroit. For the Lions, they have already locked in the NFC North crown for the first time in 30 years and are looking at a home matchup for their first home playoff game. With the loss to the Cowboys last week, they would need both Dallas and Philadelphia to lose this week for them to take the 2 seed in the playoffs. But either way, they are in. For the Vikings, they need a lot to go right. So in order for Minnesota to make the playoffs, they need a win at Detroit, and they need Green Bay, Seattle, and New Orleans to all lose. And that's that, besides Tampa Bay. So the other option is for them to win at Detroit and Green Bay, Seattle, and Tampa Bay all lose. So one of those two things needs to happen. Very, very unlikely Minnesota makes the playoffs at this point. Despite both of these teams facing tough scenarios to see anything change, we do expect to see both of these teams march out their usual suspects and not sit any starters. That leaves Detroit as the favorite, and they are only favored by 3.
Yeah, MCDC said everyone's playing. It'll be kind of interesting to see if they play the whole game, though. That's one thing that I'm a little interested in. We are getting a lot of guys back this week, though. The defensive guys I've been talking about that we've been waiting to see. CJ GJ, he'll be back. James Houston's going to be back soon. Aleem McNeil is actually supposed to be back this week. Houston's the only one that's not supposed to actually play this week. So getting healthy at the right time, which is huge. Obviously, J-Mo and Laporta both had a little bit of injuries at the end of the game last week, but hopefully they'll be back this week and be fine. But if not, we can rest them and they'll be healthy for the playoffs. But I just Minnesota is just so bad. I think they're going back to Mullins. I know Mullins finished the game because Jaron Hall was horrendous. I don't know who they're going to play at quarterback, but I'm not sure it matters. I'm going to take the Lions to get the win and cover. Even if we switch Goff for Teddy for Bridgewater, I think he can still manage this.
Yeah, with Detroit having an outside shot of the 2 seed, they should be making a major push to take care of business here. And the two teams that they need to lose both play at 425. So I expect the Lions to probably play their players well into at least the third quarter. If they do have a substantial lead and they're just going to, pull the gas back a little bit, then I can see some of the starters sitting. But they should see full freight Lions going up against the Vikings. So I'm definitely going to take Detroit here minus the points.
Yeah, with MCDC, I'm surprised our guys don't play the full game in the preseason. Like he's insane. So
yeah, he's awesome. All right. Another NFC divisional matchup here as the 7-9 Chicago Bears face off against the 8-8 Green Bay Packers. 4:25 Sunday at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. The Bears have obviously been mathematically eliminated and are out of the playoffs, and they've also secured the number 1 pick in the NFL draft from their pick from Carolina after the DJ Moore trade last year. For those of you who did not see any of the replay from last week's Chicago game, Chicago fans want Justin Fields. It was very, very clear. That stadium was rocking and saying, we want Fields. So they are not at all interested in trying to draft a new quarterback. I don't know if that's going to have any impact on what Chicago does with that number 1 pick. But for what it's worth, Bears fans, by all accounts, do seem that they want to keep Justin Fields. And I think you and I can both agree that I think that's the wise choice because he's battle tested and they know what they're going to get out of him. For the Packers, they have several scenarios where they could be making the playoffs. So here they are. If they win against Chicago, they're in. Easiest way to do it. If they tie against Chicago and Seattle and New Orleans both lose or tie, they're in. If they tie against Chicago and then Seattle has a loss or tie and Tampa Bay loses, they're in. If Minnesota loses and Seattle loses and Tampa Bay or New Orleans lose, they're also in. So a couple different scenarios for Green Bay, but for Green Bay, win and you're in. That's the big thing here. They are favored by 3 at home.
Yeah, though I think this is going to be an incredible game. I think the Bears are going to give them quite the game here. I think Green Bay is, and I don't know if they cover, but I think they do win. Yeah, I'll give them the cover too. So Green Bay wins and covers.
Yep, I am with you on that. I am going to take Green Bay to win and cover as well. I would not be surprised if they make this a game and it's potentially a push. This is another one of those games where I kind of went back and forth on it, but I do think that the Pack will get the win here and solidify a playoff spot.
Yeah, if Fields plays like he's been playing, Green Bay's defense is not going to be able to stop him. So I don't know that. Chicago would love nothing more than to ruin another NFC North team's chance of getting to the playoffs. So they're going to come out ready to rock. It's kind of funny because in the last week of the season last year, the Lions ruined their playoff hopes, and now the Bears can do it too. It'd be terrible for Packer fans.
Yeah, take that, Packer fans. Ugh. All right. Next up here, Sunday, 4:25 at FedEx Field in Landover. We have the 11-5 Dallas Cowboys up against the 4-12 Washington Commanders. The Commanders are, of course, mathematically eliminated and are looking to the offseason where we will likely see a change at the head coaching position. While Dallas has seen a lot of luck fall their way in the past week after the controversial win against Detroit in Dallas and a shocking Philadelphia loss against Arizona in Philly. Because of this, Dallas is now in the driver's seat to lock down both the NFC East and the 2 seed in the playoffs with a win against Washington, affording them 2 possible home games in the first 2 rounds. If Dallas loses and Philly wins, that would bump Dallas down to the 5 seed and would be looking at a road game in the wild card. Dallas is favored by 13.5.
Yeah, there's no reason Dallas should lose to this team. I've got Dallas winning and covering.
Yep. To no surprise, I've got them winning and covering here as well. Another situation where Dallas knows they have an opportunity to lock in the 2 seed. So I think they'll come out firing at all cylinders. They should be able to get a 2-touchdown win, I don't think, with any issue. Next is the 8-8 Seattle Seahawks versus the 4-12 Arizona Cardinals, 425 at State Farm Stadium in Glendale. The Cardinals are another team obviously mathematically eliminated, so let's focus on Seattle. Seattle is in with a win at Arizona and a Green Bay loss or tie. They are also in if there is a tie at Arizona and a Green Bay loss and Tampa Bay loss and tie, or a tie at Arizona and a Green Bay loss and a New Orleans loss or tie. So in order for them to make the playoffs, they absolutely need Green Bay to lose. So if Green Bay wins, they are out of it, regardless of how this game ends up. They do need some pieces to fall in place. They are favored by 3 on the road against Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona obviously just had a huge win. We kind of talked about that last week. It was a former coordinator of Philly. Philly obviously is showing what happens when you lose both your coordinators and you bring in Matt Patricia to try to mend defenses midway through the year and his buffoon ass. That's what you get when you bring him in.
Yeah, please extend him.
Yeah, no kidding. I think Seattle will go ahead and get the win and the cover in this one, but I think this game is going to be actually a better game than most people think it will.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun game to watch, to be honest with you. I do have Seattle here to win and cover as well. Arizona is going to be coming off a high of getting that big win in Philly, and I think that's probably going to have them a little bit of a letdown here. But I do think this could be a fun game to watch. I am going to take Seattle. Next, we have the 9-7 LA Rams against the 12-4 San Francisco 49ers, 425 at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. Both of these teams are locked into the playoffs, with San Fran locking down both the NFC West crown and the 1 seed throughout the playoffs. And LA locked into a wild card spot as what looks to be the 6 seed, which would poetically place them in Detroit in round 1 for a Matthew Stafford revenge game in Ford Field against his old Lions squad. The Rams are coming off a 1-point win over the Giants, while the Niners are returning home after a 17-point win over the Commanders. The Niners are favored by 3.
Don't forget, it would also be a Jared Goff revenge game too. let's keep it both ways here.
Yeah.
I have no idea who's going to be playing in this game. So
I don't think anybody does.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Niners minus the 3. I don't think the Rams are going to be playing anyone. And I don't think the Niners are going to be playing. So who the hell knows? Give me the Niners.
All right. I have a feeling both teams are going to be resting everybody as well. I'm going to pick LA just because if they lose this game, I'm pretty sure they slide down to the 7th spot instead of the 6th spot. And
there's a chance, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to take LA here plus the points to keep it within 3, possibly a push, if not win the game outright. Yeah, I'm going to go with LA.
It should be, let's see, Carson Wentz versus who the Jesus, who the hell's the
Carson Wentz is on one of these teams?
Carson Wentz is the Rams' backup.
I don't know how I've missed that.
I don't know who the Niners. Who's behind Purdy? They've had so many. Isn't it Darnold? We could get a Wentz versus Darnold matchup.
Yeah, I think so.
My.
Yeah, Darnold's the he's the 2.
Battle. Good God, what a battle that will be.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. All right. Next up, we have the 11-5 Philadelphia Eagles versus the 5-11 New York Giants, 425 on Sunday at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford. While the Giants are mathematically eliminated, the Eagles have clinched a playoff berth, but will need some help to gain back the 2 seed. Not only do they need to get the win in New York, but they also need Dallas to lose in Washington. If both of those things happen, Philly will move into the 2 spot, win the NFC East for the 2nd year in a row, and have 1 to 2 home games in the first 2 rounds, depending on how things shake out. If not, they will maintain the 5 seed and will be hitting the road to play the division winner of the NFC South. Philly is favored by 5.5.
Yeah, so I said last week that it should be a get-right game for Philly, and clearly it wasn't. Only being favored by 5.5 against the Giants is pretty sad. I don't know if they're anticipating people not to play. I mean, Philly kind of needs to play, so that seems extremely low to me. So I'm going to take Philly.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think this game may be closer than expected. The Giants they're in another situation where they would love to finish their season with a win at home over Philly. Obviously, there's some stuff going on behind the scenes with this team. I don't think they are all on the same page. I think there's probably some animosity in the locker room right now on whose fault this is, and I don't think that bodes well for Philadelphia. I also think that they know what needs to happen in order for them to move into the 2 seed, and Dallas is not really likely to lose to this Commanders team. So
no.
I don't know if it'll happen, but I'm going to roll the dice and say that the Giants can keep this within 5. So I'm going to take New York plus the points. All right. Next up, we have the 8-8 Denver Broncos against the 7-9 Las Vegas Raiders, 4:25 at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. Both of these teams are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs and are looking toward the offseason. Denver is coming off a 7-point home win against the Chargers last week, while the Raiders lost by 3 in Indy and thus eliminated themselves from the playoff contention. Expects both of these squads to stay in the news, though, as Denver has created a lot of negative press around their handling of Russell Wilson, and Vegas has some decisions to make at the 2 most important positions on the team, being head coach and quarterback. Vegas is favored by 2.5 at home here. Before we get your pick, what are your thoughts on what's been going on with this Russell Wilson situation in Denver?
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I think it's just more of Sean Payton doesn't want him, clearly, because statistically his numbers are great. Like, he's not playing bad. They're just not winning. And I don't think that that's necessarily his fault. Like
First year in the system, I just...
Yeah, and statistically his numbers are better than like most of the quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
Like number 7 or something. But I don't know. I think it's clearly Peyton doesn't want him. It's going to create quite the mess there. I don't know how all that's going to end up, but I don't like what's going on there at all. So I'm taking Vegas in this game.
Yeah, I'm taking the Raiders to win and cover as well. They have a lot more juice in the game to get one more win for Antonio Pierce to try to solidify him as the head coach moving forward, and I think he has an opportunity to do that. So I am taking the Raiders here as well. The thing that's crazy for me about Denver before we move into this next game here is they started the season horribly and then turned around and started playing well, and they really shot themselves in the foot because now they're going to be drafting in the middle of the first rounds when they could have been potentially in a scenario to get a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, depending on where everything falls. And nobody's going to want Russell Wilson's contract.
Nope.
So even if they do get rid of him and ship him to another team, they're going to have to pay $30 million of the $37 million he's due. Like, no team's going to take that contract on without Denver paying a significant portion of it. So I don't know what's going on with Denver. It's being run like Walmart, which I think is the owner of the team, so it probably makes a little sense. But yeah, I am taking the Raiders to win and cover. Next up, we have the 10-6 Kansas City Chiefs versus the 5-11 LA Chargers, 4:25 at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood. No playoff implications in this one as the Chargers are out, the Chiefs are in, already locking in both the AFC West crown and the 3 seed in the playoffs. KC is coming off an 8-point win over the Bengals last week, while the Chargers lost by 7 to Denver. As we enter the offseason for the Chargers, they will be quickly on the hunt for Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco's replacements after firing both of those guys a couple weeks ago. Chiefs are likely to rest starters in this one, so LA is favored by 3.
Yeah, I don't even know if the Chargers can beat the Chiefs backups. God. I'll take the Chargers, but I don't really want to. I'll take Chargers -3.
All right. He's going with Chargers at home. Even with KC resting starters, I'm still taking the Chiefs to get the win here.
Yeah.
All right. Final game of the regular season. It's a big one. The 10-6 Buffalo Bills face off against the 11-5 Miami Dolphins, 8:25 Sunday at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. The AFC East crown is on the line here, and to the victor go the spoils. A win from either team, and they will secure the division, but the big difference here is Buffalo still needs some things to go right, while Miami has already secured a playoff spot. For the Bills to get in the playoffs, they need to win against Miami, or they need a Pittsburgh, Jacksonville loss or tie, or a Texans and Colts tie. So if Pittsburgh loses or ties, if Jacksonville loses or ties, or if the Texans-Colts game ends in a tie and they don't win, Buffalo still finds their way into the playoffs. One of a couple things need to be shaken out here in order for that to happen. Buffalo has been the hotter team as of late, and because of that, they are currently favored by 3 in this one.
Yeah, I would have never anticipated where I was going to go with this a few weeks ago, but the Dolphins have too many injuries right now. I'm taking Buffalo -3.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this one, man. It's tough because Miami plays really well at home, but they are banged up on defense. And after losing both Phillips and Chubb, the Tua just got rattled in Baltimore. McDaniel does a good job motivating the next man up, and I would love to spoil Buffalo's playoff chances if they can. I don't know which way to go with it. I'm going to take Miami plus the points. I don't know if they're going to be able to squeak one out because Buffalo's been red hot lately, but I am going to take Miami plus the points. All right. So before we get into locks, let's take a look at the playoff outlook. So in straight up matchups here, just to recap this quickly, you've got Pittsburgh over Baltimore. You have Indy over Houston, Tampa over Carolina, Cincinnati over Cleveland, Detroit over Minnesota, New England over the Jets, the Saints over the Falcons, Jacksonville over the Titans, Seattle over Arizona, Green Bay over Chicago, the Chargers over the Chiefs, the Raiders over the Broncos, the Eagles over the Giants, the Niners over the Rams, the Cowboys over the Commanders, and the Bills over the Dolphins.
Yeah, just looking at this, I didn't even realize the only underdog I picked this week is the Colts.
There you go. Friends of the program. So this is how things are going to shake out, apparently, according to his selections here. With the top seed, obviously, we still have Baltimore. Here's the shakeup because things definitely change, and it's interesting based on how you've picked these games. Wild card games for the AFC. 7th seed Indianapolis travels to play Buffalo at home, who is now the 2 seed. Second game, 6th seed Miami Dolphins travel to Kansas City to play the Chiefs, who are the 3rd seed.
Ooh, that would be a great game.
And the one game that did not change would be Cleveland traveling to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars.
Which is a pretty good game. I like that game too.
Yep. On the NFC side, obviously San Fran is our first round bye. This is where things got shook up again here. The 7th seed Los Angeles Rams, with their loss, are now traveling to Dallas to play the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. The 6th seed Green Bay Packers are traveling to Detroit to play the 3rd seed Detroit Lions in an NFC North matchup in the wild card. And finally, we have the 5th seed Philadelphia Eagles traveling to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to play Tampa.
Those would be some great games there too. Minus, I don't think Philly Tampa's that great, but it could be. But
yeah, that Philly Tampa game is one of the ones that seems like it's pretty solidified in happening because it looks like, by all accounts, Tampa's probably going to end up winning the NFC South, in my opinion, anyway, based on their game this week.
Yeah,
and I don't know if I am happy with that if I'm Philadelphia, man. Tampa Bay's offense has been playing relatively well. Their defense isn't great, but Philadelphia's not been playing well at all. And they haven't been playing well, especially against teams that have decent offenses. So Baker may get a playoff win. It's hard. It's crazy to think that Baker could get a playoff. Is this his first one? If he gets a win?
No, he won in Cleveland. He beat the Steelers and then they kicked him out.
That's right. So this would be his second potential playoff win.
Yeah.
Some sweet poetry though, because they didn't even know if he was going to be the starter going into the season, and he's played pretty well. Baker's kind of bounced back a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, on the AFC side, Indy at Buffalo, Miami at Kansas City, Cleveland at Jacksonville. What are you thinking there as far as biggest game? I mean, I think the one that stands out obviously is Miami, Kansas City.
Yeah, Dolphins Chiefs would be huge, especially Chiefs defense has kind of came alive, been really good facing the Miami offense. I think that'd be fun to watch. But and then also the Chiefs, the Dolphins defense has been pretty solid. Secondary's been good. Jalen Ramsey's there. It'd be interesting to see the Chiefs offense that's kind of been sluggish the last few weeks go up against that Dolphins defense. So that would be a fun one. I think that would be probably the marquee game of the weekend. I would probably say that's the biggest game of the weekend. I mean, probably Packers Lions would be huge just because of the divisional aspect of it and being rivals forever. And that was actually the Thanksgiving Day game when they came in and beat our ass. So it'd be nice to play them again for that reason.
Yeah, for sure.
But obviously Rams Cowboys would be awesome. Stafford going back home to Texas to play Dallas. There's a lot of fun games there. Even like Cleveland, Jacksonville is good. What was the other one? Buffalo and who?
Indy at Buffalo.
So that's probably the worst one.
Yeah.
But even I would even give Indy probably a fighting chance in that game, though. Like, I don't think that would be the blowout people probably would think it would be.
No, I mean it takes one game for Buffalo to go back to playing like Buffalo played in the first half of the season, and I don't necessarily think that they're a shoe-in to be able to beat Indy. Steichen's done a lot with a little, and yeah, I mean I can definitely see them going in and giving Buffalo a run for their money. The only potential downside to that is that it's in Buffalo, so it's going to be an outdoor game. Indy's used to playing indoors. Miami going to Kansas City, that's kind of rough for Miami because of the weather. Cleveland, obviously, no problem there going to Jacksonville because it's nicer weather than what they have in Cleveland right now. And then we have two indoor games on the NFC side with Dallas and Detroit. Tampa being the one that's the outdoor game, but that again is not going to be bad weather. So, or it won't be cold anyway. I don't know exactly what the weather's going to be in Tampa this weekend, but yeah, some really interesting games here. The Kansas City Miami game is going to be fantastic. I honestly think that I don't see Jacksonville getting out of the first round.
I think it would be a battle. Because I think that they could bring enough pressure on Flacco where they might be able to stay into the game. I mean, Jacksonville's defense has been all right. And I think that's going to be the key is the Browns offense versus the Jags defense in that one, if it were to come true to play.
Yeah, and with Cleveland having no skin in the game this week, then Schwartz should be sitting up there scheming against whatever Jacksonville's offense is the whole game, so they could just get prepared for that. That'll give them an extra week of prep time. So that's how things are going to shake out for me based on my picks here. I've got just to recap here, going up against this, you've got Indy at Buffalo, Miami at Kansas City, and Cleveland to Jacksonville. Based on how I have things picked out, I've got Pittsburgh at Miami. I have Houston at Kansas City, and I have Cleveland to Jacksonville. So the 2-7 and the 3-6 games are different on my side. And then I also have a flip-flop for the NFC side. So I have Green Bay visiting Dallas. I have the Rams visiting Detroit. And then obviously Philly and Tampa, which seems to be pretty much a shoe-in. Those 4-5 seed games look like they're pretty much locked in.
Houston and the Chiefs would be fun to watch also. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, man. We talked about it a little bit this year, man. I love what Stroud's been doing since he's been in the league. I think he's a really good product, and Houston's found their guy. So by all accounts, he's been fun to watch.
Yeah, it was probably like week 5 or 6. We both kind of were like, this Houston team's going to be really good in the future. Like not necessarily this year, but in the future, it's really good. And then here they are. They came alive this year and might make the playoffs. So, it's something that's been fun to watch all year. They're a very solid team with great coaching. Yeah,
so I wonder where they currently sit in terms of the draft order. It looks like Chicago's locked in on the one side, so that goes without saying.
Because that's the Carolina pick, right?
That's the Carolina pick, correct. Right now we've got Chicago at 1, Washington at 2, New England at 3, Arizona at 4, Giants at 5, Chargers at 6, Titans at 7, Jets at 8, Falcons at 9, Chicago at 10 again. So they have 2 picks in the first 10 picks. Vegas at 11, Minnesota at 12, New Orleans at 13, Denver at 14, Seattle at 15, Cincy at 16. Arizona has Houston's pick at 17. So Arizona is picking at 17. And so they've got 2 picks inside the top 20. Pittsburgh is at 18. Then we go into the wild card round losers, divisional round losers, and so on, and it kind of shakes out from there. But Houston does have Cleveland's pick in the first round. Right now, they've got him sitting at 28.
I wonder if obviously it'll be talked about here in the next few weeks, but I think, and obviously you did too, the Bears should keep Fields, but in my opinion, they should trade that pick and just get as much as possible that they can.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have the 10th pick behind it anyway. So why not they could probably add in, if someone's willing to trade up, they're going to have to give up the world. So you could probably add a player or 2, add a ton of picks. Like, why would you not if you're the Bears? Because I don't think that their need is quarterback. And I think someone will pay the world to come up and get Caleb Williams.
Yeah, 100%. You've got the Commanders. The Commanders sitting there, like, I don't know what they're going to play. Like, that's an interesting conversation because I think Sam Howell can be serviceable for them if they get a new coach, and I think they have a coach already in Eric Bieniemy. I think they just need to promote him. But I think Sam Howell can be a serviceable quarterback for them. So I don't know that necessarily they need to use that pick at QB. New England clearly needs a quarterback. So where they go with that, I don't know. It seems to me like regardless of whether Caleb Williams is available, I feel like Drake May is a better fit for the Patriots. I don't know why. It just feels like he would fit more into that system. So we'll see what happens there. Arizona, at the beginning of the year, it was like we're getting rid of Kyler, but then Kyler came back and he's not been playing too poorly, and Jonathan Gannon's there now. So I don't know if Kyler's going to want to stay in Arizona. If that happens, they don't need a quarterback. Then you go to the Giants, and I think they announced shortly after Daniel Jones was out for the year that they were going to be moving on from Daniel Jones after the season, and that was after they gave him an extension at the beginning of the year. So I don't know where that lands, but Chargers don't need a quarterback. The Titans, they have Will Levis. Are they going to use it on a QB?
You wouldn't think so, but
You would think not.
yeah.
The Jets, Rodgers is going to come back. Do you burn a pick to go to quarterback?
I wouldn't think so.
Atlanta, they need a QB.
Definitely.
Chicago is again sitting at the 10 spot. I don't think they need a quarterback. Vegas needs a quarterback.
Minnesota needs a quarterback.
Minnesota needs a quarterback, but Justin Jefferson has come out and said that he wants to play with Kirk Cousins, so I don't know what they're going to do about that. I would assume that they're going to end up taking somebody at the 12 spot. Maybe somebody big falls and they just can't pass them up. New Orleans, I think they probably needed 1 year to see that the Derek Carr scenario is not going to work. Denver clearly needs a quarterback because they've already told Russell Wilson to hit the bricks. Seattle, they have Geno.
I think they need a quarterback.
I think they probably need to go after a quarterback. Cincinnati definitely doesn't need a quarterback. Arizona, again, sitting at the 17th spot. We don't know what they're going to do. Pittsburgh.
Depends who's there.
Yeah.
If Penix sort of fall, then I don't know how you don't do it.
Yeah,
if I'm Pittsburgh and Penix is at 17,
18. But yeah,
whatever. Yeah, I'm taking him.
Green Bay, I think they've gone back and forth. They were like, yeah, Jordan Love's over, and then he started playing well again. I think the jury's still out for him.
Yeah, Love definitely has earned one more year at least.
Tampa Bay with Baker, I think Baker's been serviceable enough. I don't know that they go after a quarterback.
Yeah, it'll be interesting there I think that they're going to have a lot of issues with re-signing some guys there. So Baker might be out there. It just depends. That would be an interesting situation to watch.
So here comes the big ones. Indy, who has Anthony Richardson. I don't think they're going to go after anybody. Jacksonville, clearly not. They have Trevor Lawrence. What about the Rams?
I would say it's possible.
Even if Stafford comes back to play one more season,
I would say it's possible.
And then you have Buffalo, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Detroit, Houston, Miami, Dallas, San Francisco, Baltimore. None of those teams need quarterbacks.
No.
If you are sitting there with the one pick, and let's say you're not the Bears, let's say you're the Commanders, are you taking Penix over any of them?
If I'm the GM, yes, but I'm not. And no NFL GM is going to take Penix number one. Caleb Williams will go one. And if I was Washington and had that pick, I would take Caleb. I think you have to. They're trying to start a whole new era there. They're going to have a new stadium. There's even talk of changing the logo. So, I think that they've got to erase everything possible from the Daniel Snyder era and go brand new direction.
Yep, I agree.
Caleb Williams would be the player to do that.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, we'll get a better view of what this is all going to look like on the playoffs next week, obviously. When we visit you guys again next Tuesday, we will have a clear picture of what the playoffs look like. But before we sign off here, let's do our locks of the week. I am 14-3 in my locks this year. Oh, the old loop back got us there.
Yep.
14-3 in locks this year for me, 11-6 in locks this year for Workman. Jake, who are you locking in on this week?
Oh, give me the Lions -3.
Go ahead and get that double lock button ready, buddy, because I am also locking in on Detroit over Minnesota. Should be an easy home game for them to lock up before heading into the playoffs. So I'm locking in on the Lions. So looks like we are double locking in on Detroit. That's a fine a fine way for us to end the regular season for the NFL. All right, guys, that does it for us for Week 18 picks for the NFL. Before we sign off here, now we're just doing all sorts of goofy shit.
Right. We're zooming in on us.
We're zooming in here. So you can see all the Cowboy stuff. Penguins are actually playing the Caps right now. If you're a hockey fan, go watch that. What thoughts do you have to share here as we wrap up the regular season in the first inaugural season here of TNT Podcast NFL?
So the only thing that really sucks on my end is I don't think I'm going to have the week I need to get to 500, which is unfortunate. But when it comes to real football, though, nice thing is obviously the Lions have clinched a playoff spot. They're going to have a home game next weekend, which is huge. Rams have already clinched a playoff spot also, which is the other thing I was concerned about. So really this week is kind of just like a carefree week for me. Enjoy football for the last week of the season, and then next week it's 2 playoff games I'm going to have heavy interest in. Well, actually, might be 1 playoff game I have a lot of interest in, but I'm hoping that we get a split and they do not play next week.
Yeah. Well, I don't. In what situation would they? Oh, well, you're talking about if the Rams play the Lions. Yeah. That'll be a tough one for you.
I don't want to see them play. If they play in the NFC Championship, then I'll be okay with it. Clearly, I'd be rooting for the Lions.
Rooting for the Lions. Okay. All right. I get I forgot about this. There was one other thing that I saw is that Dalvin Cook got released today.
Yeah, he did. And if I was Dallas, I would probably be comfortable.
Yeah, I would be too. Because right now we are straight ass in the run game. Rico Dowdle's not 100%. Deuce Vaughn has not gotten the touches that I thought he was going to get as a rookie. Tony Pollard is a shell of what he was. I don't know what happened with him, but that run game is just horrendous. I did see that we signed Lyle Collins off of the practice squad or to the practice squad. So getting some depth at the right time for the Cowboys. Nice to see Lyle Collins back on the team because he's already familiar with the system. So hopefully that's a benefit to us. Hoping Tyron Smith can continue to keep healthy for us for one more year because I don't know how many he's got left in him. That dude, he's been around a long time. He's a beast. Appreciate all of his service, but he is definitely on the tail end of his career. So I would love to see him ride off on the sunset with the Super Bowl. We'll see what happens. We made it to the playoffs. I just don't want to lose in round 1. I'm tired of losing in round 1. We'll see what happens, man. Any other thoughts here before we sign off?
No, other than it's been a good regular season. First regular season for us picking games like we just talked about in college. College, we picked quite a few more games, but it's still been quite the battle. So it's been fun. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, obviously we still have a few more weeks here on TNT podcast for the NFL version. We've got 1, maybe 2 more shows on the college side, but we'll be following through all the way through the Super Bowl for the NFL side of the podcast. Maybe we'll do something special between now and then for the NFL side. Maybe try to bring in some guys for the NFL episode or something. Maybe we'll do a live version where Workman and I are in the same location. I don't know exactly how we'll make that work, but we're still planning some things. We will probably plan on taking a little bit of a break after the Super Bowl is over, probably coming back to do an episode or 2 leading up to the NFL draft and then talking about what happened with that. And then we'll probably take a little bit of time off during the summertime before we jump back into things when the preseason stuff starts and get that all up and running. So greatly appreciate everybody that's had an opportunity to watch and listen to us this year. Please stick with us and continue to follow as we go into the playoffs here. And yeah, we're looking forward to keeping this going long term, guys. We can't do it without you guys listening and supporting the podcast. So it's greatly appreciated.
Even though the college one is only one game this week, make sure you guys do go check out listen to the Anti-Native American Jesus Bible Conference information. There was a mule rider, Savage Storm, Wonder Boys. So yeah, you got to go check out and just hear about this wonderful conference somewhere.
Yeah, we talked about it the past couple of weeks because it's relatively new to us, but we have been rocking and rolling with some random conference guessing game stuff for Workman, and he's getting better as we go in throughout every week. This week he ended at 9-3, and he also guessed the conference correctly. So
actually got the conference right somehow.
Yeah. And it was a conference that's all built in Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So I got to throw some ringers at him. Wonder Boys was.
Obviously, that was a miss.
Some of these names, yeah, and no, you got that one right, but it's because I played it up for you. Oh. It's a wonder that these boys.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I occasionally I got to give you the D Wade throw up in the air so you can just catch it and slam it.
Yeah, I mean, after mule riders and something else,
mule riders and the ore diggers and
yeah.
It's been a fun one. All right, guys. For the fine citizen Jacob Workman, this is Reese Downing, TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL Edition,
Captain
Week
Reese.
18. Captain Reese. Right. All right, I've now been dubbed Captain from this episode moving forward. I'll change my name. Again, for the fine citizen Jacob Workman, this is Captain Reese Downing, TNT Podcast, NFL Edition, Week 18. Cheers and good luck, guys.
See you, everyone.